Welcome to today's scholarly podcast, 298. Stuart Russell's Chapter 2, The Missing Notes, a multimodal hermeneutic and media semiotic analysis by Dr. William Anderson Giddens, D.D. Copyright 2026. ISBN 978 976 94221. Welcome to podcast 298. I'm your host, Dr. William Anderson Giddens, D.D., broadcasting from the beautiful island of Barbados. Thank you for joining me for what promises to be a fascinating intellectual journey into Stuart Russell's Chapter 2, The Missing Notes, a multimodal hermeneutic and media semiotic analysis. Today, we move beyond the surface of the narrative and explore how a seemingly simple mystery unfolds into a profound meditation on memory, truth, communication, and ethical responsibility. Using a multidisciplinary framework that combines hermeneutics, media semiotics, etymology, cultural analysis, and theological interpretation, I will demonstrate how Russell's text operates as a sophisticated communication system rather than merely a detective-style narrative. At first glance, Chapter 2 appears to focus on something quite ordinary, missing notes. Yet, as we shall discover, those missing notes carry layers of meaning that extend far beyond their immediate narrative function. The mystery beneath the mystery. One of the most compelling features of the mystery notes is its ability to transform absence into significance. The central mystery concerns notes that cannot be found, denotatively and connotative levels. That is, at the most literal level, that notes are simply missing records. They are absent documents, missing information. However, as Roland Barthes reminds us, texts operate on multiple levels of meaning. Barthes, 1977. When we move from denotation to connotation, the missing notes become symbols. They represent fractured memory. They evoke uncertainty. They suggest that truth itself may be unstable, elusive, and vulnerable to distortion. In this sense, the narrative asks a fundamental question. What happens when the records we depend upon disappear? How do individuals reconstruct reality when fragments of evidence are lost? And perhaps most importantly, can truth ever be fully recovered once memory has become fragmented? These questions resonate deeply within our contemporary information environment, where vast quantities of data are preserved, edited, deleted, and redistributed every second. A multimodal perspective. My analysis employs what I describe as a multimodal hermeneutic framework. Multimodality recognizes that meaning is rarely communicated through words alone. Rather, meaning emerges through the interaction of multiple modes of communication: language, imagery, song, cultural symbolism, and social context. Kress and Van Leeuwen, 2006. Although The Missing Notes is a written narrative, Russell structures the chapter in ways that encourage readers to visualize scenes, hear conversations, and interpret symbolic cues. As readers, we become investigators. We are not merely consuming information, we are actively constructing meaning. The narrative invites us to fill gaps, to interpret silence, and evaluate competing possibilities. In doing so, Chapter 2 mirrors the very process by which human beings navigate knowledge in everyday life. We rarely possess complete information. Instead, we interpret fragments, we connect signs, we infer meanings, and we make judgments based on incomplete evidence. The etymology of note. To appreciate the significance of the missing notes, we must pause briefly and consider the word itself. As a linguist and scholar of language, I find etymology invaluable because words often preserve traces of cultural memory. The English word note derives from the Latin nota, meaning a mark, sign, symbol, or indication. Oxford English Dictionary 2023. Historically, notes serve as instruments of remembrance. They allowed experiences, observations, and ideas to be preserved beyond the limitations of individual memory. A note is therefore much more than a piece of paper. It is a bridge between experience and record, between memory and preservation, between knowledge and transmission. When the notes disappear in Russell's narrative, that bridge collapses. The result is epistemological uncertainty. Knowledge becomes incomplete, memory becomes vulnerable, truth becomes contested. Viewed through this etymological lens, the missing notes symbolize a disruption of humanity's enduring effort to preserve and transmit knowledge across time. Absence as meaning. One of the most intriguing insights emerging from this analysis is that absence itself can function as a sign. We often assume that meaning resides in what is present. Yet, semiotics teaches us that what is missing can be equally significant. A missing photograph tells a story. A missing witness creates suspicion. A missing document raises questions. Likewise, Russell transforms absence into a communicative force. The missing notes generate curiosity precisely. Their absence compels interpretation. Readers become participants in an act of reconstruction. In this way, the narrative demonstrates that silence can communicate, gaps can signify, and absence can become one of the most powerful forms of presence. Media, semiotics, and contemporary culture. Another fascinating dimension of Chapter 2 is its relevance to contemporary media culture. The narrative bears striking similarities to investigative journalism, documentary storytelling, serialized podcasts, and cinematic mysteries. Consider the concept of the MacGuffin, a term popularized by filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock. A MacGuffin is an object that drives the plot forward while simultaneously pointing toward larger themes and concerns. The missing notes function in a similar manner. They motivate the investigation, they propel the narrative. Yet their significance extends beyond their practical role. They become symbolic gateways into broader discussions about memory, trust, authority, and knowledge. In many ways, Chapter 2 reads almost like an investigative podcast rendered in textual form. Dialogue unfolds gradually, clues emerge incrementally, information is revealed strategically, the reader is drawn into a process of discovery, the narrative structure reflects contemporary media practices in which audiences increasingly participate in the interpretation of evidence rather than simply receiving conclusions. In conclusion, Chapter 2 of The Missing Notes transcends its surface level narrative to function as a symbolic exploration of contested knowledge and ethical discernment. Through a multimodal hermeneutic and media semiotic framework, The Missing Notes become a mirror for our contemporary struggles with memory, truth, and media saturation, while revealing the profound semantic and etymological undercurrents underlying seemingly mundane words. Thank you for joining me on this exploration through a rigorous interdisciplinary level. Podcast 298. Stewart Russell's Chapter 2, The Missing Notes, a multimodal hermeneutic and media semiotic analysis, copyright 2026. Until next time, I am Dr. William Anderson Giddens, DD, wishing you insightful listening and thoughtful reading. God bless.